What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Spurs post-game reaction show. It's hosted by me, Shivam Patel. I'm coming to you live from San Antonio, Texas. Unfortunately, Spurs suffered another loss on this 9-game homestand that they're in the middle of. They're 0-3 on this homestand so far. After having a nice road trip, beating some high-quality Eastern Conference teams, but they've been struggling at home as the struggles continue for the Spurs. But thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And remember, you can watch this Spurs post-game reaction show on the Patel Pick and Roll Sports YouTube channel. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And also on the Patel Pick and Roll Sports Facebook channels and the Shiva Patel Facebook channel, where I'm going to be coming during select games, giving my instant analysis and reaction after the game. So, and remember, Spurs fans, put your chats in the comment section below. Tell me how you feel about tonight's game, about the struggles, what the Spurs need to do better, and what you like to see turn around. And they will be featured live on the show. So back to this game, the first game on the 9-game homestand, they had a game against the Hornets, which was a tough game. It's always hard to win, the first game back after a long road trip, but it's still a game that the Spurs should have won. They ended up losing to the Clippers last night. It was a back-to-back. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George absolutely went off on them, and the role players really stepped up. Zubac played well. The Clippers had 17 3-pointers last night. And then coming into this game, you thought, the Clippers were going to shoot a little bit, not shoot as well as the last game. And the Spurs perimeter defense definitely needs to improve, but it really didn't. There was not enough adjustments made. The Clippers just did whatever they wanted to tonight. And they were missing some quality players. Paul George was the only star out there for the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard, didn't play. Marcus Morris, Lou Williams ended up getting traded today at the trade deadline. Of course, the Spurs did nothing at the trade deadline, only getting, Marquise Chris. So the Clippers were without some key players tonight. And it was an opportunity for the Spurs to come out, impose their will, and get a win and really be able to right the ship on this 9-game homestand. But they failed to. They did start a little better because they started really slow last night. And I think that was a big reason why they weren't able to climb back in, especially against the star-powered LA Clippers. But this game, they started pretty well. They were up by a couple of 6 points at halftime. In the third quarter, they were up and kind of going back and forth. But just overall, what failed the Spurs in this game was the defense. They allowed Reggie Jackson to score, 28 points. Paul George, of course, he scored 24 points. The Clippers made 13 threes. A lot of these threes were just wide open. The perimeter defense is really lacking. They're allowing a lot of straight line drives and, forcing the help and getting a lot of wide open threes. Their defensive rotations aren't sharp. They're not getting as many deflections, as many steals. They look very lackluster on the defensive end of the floor. And that's going to happen, because right now there's the young players. They're more offensively focused, but they need to, take pride and really play hard on the defensive end, because especially, like games tonight where they were struggling on the offensive end, your defense can really fuel their offense. And they weren't able to get any turnovers off the Clippers. And I think that really contributed to them, having to be a play defense for a long time, because the Clippers were getting a lot of offensive rebounds, and they completely annihilated the Spurs on the board, 57-39. The Clippers were allowed to get a lot of second chance opportunities. The Spurs fouled a little bit too much tonight. They weren't able to get a lot of 50-50 balls, and the Clippers just wanted it more. And that's disappointing, coming off a back-to-back when you lost last night. And it was just, I expected more from the Spurs in this game. I thought they were going to come out hungry, determined, focused, wanting to play well, wanting to get back the winning taste into their mouth, but, they didn't. And, don't get me wrong, they're playing a very high-quality opponent. The Clippers are a top 3 team in the Western Conference, and they're there for a reason. They're one of the championship contenders, but still, the Spurs, they've beaten some good teams early in the season. Remember, they beat this Clippers team. They beat the Lakers, the Celtics, the Nuggets. So they've beaten high-quality teams, and I just expected the Spurs to come out a little bit hungrier, come out gritty, hustle. I think there was a lack of hustle tonight, and it was just a struggle, on the defensive end on the floor. Also, they've been struggling is on the offensive end of the floor also, because in this home game, in this homestand, it's basically been, DeMar DeRozan or bust. They relied too much on DeMar DeRozan to go isolation, whether at the top of the key to break down a defender, get to his spots in the mid-range, or get to the rim. They rely rely on him on the post-ups, going one-on-one and creating his own shot. They're not getting as much consistent scoring productions from the Derek Whites, from the DeJounte Murrays, from the Keldon Johnsons, Devin Vassell, who's kind of taken a step back. Maybe he's hitting the rookie wall. They need other offensive contributions besides, DeMar DeRozan, because you can tell the teams are really focusing on him. And, the Spurs are not a great outside shooting team. So what Clippers did on this 2-game, mini series is they really packed the paint and forced the Spurs to shoot threes because they knew they couldn't beat them from the perimeter and not let them get to their paint area where they're strong at. And the Spurs were not able to make shots these last 2 games, and the NBA is a make or miss league. So it was tough to watch for the Spurs, but hopefully, they can rebound. And we had an audience comment saying the Spurs look tired. Pop needs to go deep into his bench and play the other young players to get more fresh legs. I definitely agree. I wanted to see more, Devin Vassell. He's not playing as much as I wanted him to play. The Luka Samanic. You need to play the young guys because they have energy. Luka Samanic last night had some nice drives to the basket. He was fearless. He's being aggressive, looking for his own shot, shooting the 3. I wanted to see him play more because he's a big, athletic, big that can really impact the game on both ends of the floor. So he definitely needs to get more run. Devin Vassell, who's right now a great defender and who can make open shots. He's not as assertive on the offensive end of the floor, but you could use his length, use his athleticism to generate turnovers and get on the fast break. So I think Pop needs to go into his bench a little bit more because you're really in the bench not getting anything from your veterans. Patty Mills has been struggling. He only made like 1 3 tonight and missed a couple more. Rudy Gay didn't really give you that much. So if those veterans aren't giving you that production you need, then you need to go to the young guys and see what they got because the Spurs need to play better offensively. They only scored 85 points. That's not going to win you games in today's NBA. You have to get, their season average is 110 points. They need to get north of 110 because they need offense and they need other players to step up because teams are either doubling or packing the paint and throwing a lot of bodies at DeMar DeRozan, which the other guys are getting open shots. It's just a matter of just making those shots. So I've been very disappointed with the Spurs on the offensive end of the floor, and it's carrying to the defensive end. They look very lackluster and not focused, and that definitely needs to change quickly because the Spurs are really falling in the standings. Last night after that loss, the Mavericks took them over for the 7th seed. The Spurs are the 8th seed right now. It's all jam-packed in the Western Conference. They at least need to be, in the 7 to 10 play-in tournament. So I think the Spurs need to start, getting those wins because you cannot fall too much behind because there's a lot of other high-quality teams out there. And it's going to be, to me, Saturday is a must-win. You're 0-3 on this homestand. You're struggling at home. They're 10-13 now. They're allowing some fans in. The AT&T Center, I believe there was about 3,200 fans, but you can still mainly hear the pipe-in crowd noise. The fans are getting us louder into the game because they're a little bit further back in the arena. So the Spurs aren't able to feed off that energy from their home crowd. If it was a packed, with 19,000 people, they can really get the team going and get them to play better, especially in a big game like this. So I think the crowd is affecting them. I think they're much more focused on the road, but that needs to change quickly. And they got a big game coming up, Saturday against the Chicago Bulls, and the Spurs really need to play better and get the win. Again, you can catch every episode of the Spurs post-game reaction show on the Patel Pick and Roll Sports YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe. And also you can watch on the Patel Pick and Roll Sports Facebook channel. Be sure to follow that and Shivam Patel Facebook channel. I will be back, for select games. I'm going to be back next week as the Spurs are going to continue this, 9-game homestand. Just quickly before I go, thank you so much, everybody, for putting your chats in the comment section below and for tuning in tonight. And it was a tough game for the Spurs. I expected them to get at least one of these 2 games against the Clippers after playing so well on this Eastern Conference road trip. Of course, you had tough games against the Sixers and the Bucks, one of the top teams in both the Eastern Conference, but you had some nice wins against the Cavs, the Pistons, the Bulls. I want the Spurs to get back to playing that Spurs basketball. I think, they're too much on the offensive end. The ball sticks too much in one player's hands, and they, dribble out to the end of the shot clock, and DeRozan takes a tough shot. I want to see that ball movement, that cutting action, getting a lot of open shots, getting to the foul line. I think the Spurs have been not attacking as much. They've been shooting too many threes. I would like to see the Spurs get to the foul line, be aggressive on the offensive end of the floor, find find their teammates, cut, play this motion offense that's really beautiful to watch. And I think that'll start to get the engine going on the offensive end on the floor. And just before I go, I'm just going to preview quickly the next couple of games for the Spurs. Of course, against the Bulls, who the Spurs beat on the road trip, in Chicago. But the Bulls are going to be coming back hungry. Of course, they got Nikola Vucevic, at the trade deadline, so they made some nice moves there. Zach LaVine, of course, their all-star, one of the best players in the NBA, who's a superstar, or star budding on a superstar, I should say. He's going to be important that the Spurs need to really clamp down and play good defense on the Bulls, because the Bulls are a very high-potent scoring offense. They still have Lauri Markkanen also, but the Bulls are weak on defense, so you can definitely attack them, as we saw in Chicago. You can't get down. In Chicago, they were down by 23 points. They had to fight and claw their way back into the game. No, you have to, pose your will, step on the throats. I would like to see the Spurs start faster, make shots on defensive end, play active defense, generate turnovers, get to the foul line, and just play a complete game, because this game against the Bulls can be a confidence booster, because the rest of the homestand is very winnable games. You play against the Bulls, then you play 2 games against the Kings, who are the bottom of the Western Conference, and then you play against the Hawks, which are playing pretty good, but the Pacers, and then the Cavs. So those are all winnable games, but it starts Saturday night against the Chicago Bulls. And again, I'll be back next week, in one of the Kings mini-series games, breaking down what I saw, giving my instant analysis and reaction. And thank you so much, everybody, again, for tuning in. Thank you for the audience comments. Remember, you can watch the Spurs post-game reaction show on the Patel Pick and Roll Sports YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe. You can also watch it on the Patel Pick and Roll Sports Facebook channel. Be sure to follow, and Shivam Patel Facebook channel. Again, Spurs fans will get through this. Spurs are getting into a little lull, but let's hope that we can right the ship and get a W Saturday night against the Bulls. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great rest of your night,